You stopped me on my track.
You said
I'm
enjoyed.
saying this. I say this often because people
Yeah.
come to me at a very depressed state.
Yes.
They need hand holding there,
Yeah.
and I usually hold their hands and walk them through their confusion, and they usually come out with some kind of an answer, because a confusion is not an emptiness. A confusion is actually the
Hmm.
possibility of multiple choices.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. But you will have to make them aware that confusion is not darkness and negativity. Confusion is actually something quite positive. So once they believe that, then you can take the next step. Right. Now, the other aspect of what you're saying is that some professional practices. Yes, I am aware of that. And actually, for the past 2 years, I am teaching. It's not a course, but it's part of their MA studies, where I walk them through process of how to write a statement, what are the do's and don'ts in writing a CV, how to write a project proposal for a residency or an award. So these, I think, or how to make a PDF file, what are the sort of ideals that one should have, how
Yeah.
it is important not to send a 20 MB file to somebody unasked for,
Yeah, that's true.
you know,
Yeah.
and they usually get rejected and
Yeah.
end up in the trash box.
Yeah.
So, so these are the nitty-gritties of surviving in the art world.
Do you also do social media now? No.
We do, because for de facto we have to make a social media presence for our final year degree show, because there was no way we could do a physical exhibition. So
Yeah.
yes, so there has been a lot of that, and last year was the first time that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
did it digitally, virtually, and
Yes.
that meant about a month and a half's work,
Yes.
editing, teaching people
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is a good image and how it should be
Yeah.
resized,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what is the difference between a JPEG and a PDF. And some
Yes.
people had no idea of how to
Yeah.
do these things. So
Yeah.
it took us very long, but I think it is a worthwhile experience, because at the end of the day, they did have some knowledge. Not everybody to the same level, but that's never the case. There are slow learners, there are fast learners, there are people who are comfortable with technology, there are people who have access to technology. We have students who are sitting in some tribal hamlet who get phone signals at the top of a hillock.
Yeah.
I have had students who would venture out and go to the top of the hill to listen to an online class. So that is the reality.
Hmm.
So you cannot expect everybody to have the same facility. But having said that, at least they're familiar with these words, the terminologies, and what is the difference between a bio and a CV, how to organize things, even things like when you write the name of your university or your college, how best to do it, etc., etc. So there are things. So it's not that
Yeah.
those are overlooked, but there are two aspects. One is the art world, what we usually understand by art
Yeah.
world. What is it? The world
Yeah.
of galleries, museums, collectors, um, etc., exhibitions.
Yeah.
But there is a world of art which is much bigger, which cuts across centuries.
Yeah.
So yes, so ideally we would want a student to have some idea of both. And the art world requires you to do certain things in a certain way. That's fine. I'm not denying that. But the world of art is something that is my primary concern. And if you're excited about that,
Yeah.
you will learn the tricks. And I'm although I'm not going to teach you like an MBA student or how to make,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not really my forte. And I would rather focus on the world of art than the art world.
That's
But
true.
having said that, I do understand the importance of the art world. If
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to survive there, you do need to be equipped with certain basic skills. So I'm not entirely negligent as a teacher of that.
Yeah.
That will be my defense.
Yeah. No, everybody nowadays, I think the artists are the only profession that even though they're unemployed, they'll still refer to themselves as artists. Like no engineer or doctor, if they've not been employed, would say put it up on their card or put it up publicly announce that I am a doctor or this. They would in fact feel ashamed about it. But for some reason, everybody on Instagram is an artist today. Fair enough. So, sir, I basically have a very sensitive question. My question is, why is it important to have an education in the arts? It's such a sensitive subject. Also, again, the reason is because it's a it's not a very it it's not like a solution based. We are not essential commodities. We are not, we are almost always considered at the end of as a luxury commodity sometimes, or as you know but what it does psychologically for artists themselves and for the general population. I want to touch on this subject. On Everybody knows, everybody gets, they use artists for entertainment, but everybody wants to be an artist. So are you getting what I'm trying to say? I'm like, what should the general population know about artists, because so many have gone under your wing? What do you think is the best advice you would give someone to become an artist? So, like, I'll give you a full 10 minutes. I won't say anything. I'll just respond. But I'm asking you, like, why is it important? Why is an education in the arts important? That's the title question. Like, what does it, how does it fix
Well,
us?
there are many ways of looking at that. And the one thing that we have already touched upon is an art school does not necessarily only make artists. It also makes people who are in the related fields of many creative endeavors. But for answering that question, let us take up the issue of only artists. Let us for a minute assume that an art school produces only artists. Will that still be relevant? Let me frame the question like this. The answer to that is very simple. Yes, there is a perception that arts are not essential commodities. There is actually a list made during the pandemic where it's listed essential services, and arts was really pushed to the
Yeah.
bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I cannot imagine a civilized society which doesn't have artists in them. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have poets, you don't have singers, you don't have musicians, you
Yeah.
don't have philosophers. What kind of society are you building? You just have
Yeah.
the army, and you have the politicians, you have the administrators, you have the doctors, and you have engineers. Can you imagine a society like that? And what kind of a society will that be? That will be my counter question to this. So those of people who are very comfortable pushing culture outside the parameter of education, any culture for that matter, anything that is creative. So art school is a part of that, the creative endeavor of man. And we are talking about visual art here, which is a segment. But can you imagine an education system of a country, or a country running without artists, musicians, poets, philosophers? If you can, fine, I have nothing to say. But that's not my idea of a nation. A nation where these people are valued is a nation which is where I want to live. That's the end of the story. That is the very short answer to that question.
Yeah.
Because it is a question of imagining a world, a better world. And we are constantly striving for it. We are facing one crisis over the other. Who are the people who are, this is again talking in a philosophical manner, because it comes down to little things like whether you produce visual artists, or whether you produce musicians, or whether you produce theater people, or whether you produce literatures. All that clubbed together makes what is called a culture of a nation, right?
Right.
And it is also how it percolates, because it's not just those handful of people who are producing it. It is also a lot many people who are consuming it. And the more people who are exposed to the best of a nation's culture,
Yeah.
and that is called a cultured civilized nation. Or else we will have a nation state. We will have a military, we have an engineer corps, we have the
Yeah.
lawyers and the administrators, and that's more or less what it takes to have a functional society. But you'll have to go back to the fundamentals. That is man happy with only eating twice and having a roof above their head? These are all very important basic necessities.
Yeah.
No denying of that.
Yeah.
But is that enough for a human society to thrive, to develop?
No.
to even look forward, or that is the basic bare minimum. And any human society that wants to live beyond that basic level of subsistence and survival will need the arts. And
Yeah.
this is not just visual art. I'm talking
Is
across the board
across the board
about the culture at large.
at large.
So that is a very obvious question, and to think that they are
Yeah, I'm
inessential
just yeah.
is self-defeating.
But an enlightened mind will protest, and since you are an educator, the roots for self-actualization and to understand what your issues are and why you should start from an art school. So, are you secretly teaching students to, like, to, in a way, to start questioning? I mean, you started the interview by saying
Why
that
secretly? I teach them to ask questioning openly.
no,
There
but
is no secret about it.
maybe the reason we are not essential in the system we are in the vertical that we are in, is because we then eventually ask questions, and so you're pushed, or the funding is cut, and then you're right back. So, is this been has this been your experience all along, or have you seen?
It has been the experience all along, and there is no secret about it. I teach my students to ask questions. Yes, ideally, I don't know how much I succeed,
No, so
but if
that's
you
why.
ask me what your aspiration is, then yes, I do want my student to ask questions. If they don't, then I feel saddened. I feel I failed,
Perfect.
and there's
That's
no secret about it.
Yeah, I want to ask you. You have been abroad, and you've had an education. You yourself have studied abroad. I want to ask you now that, with all your life experience, what's the difference between the life of an artist or an art student in India and outside India, considering the economics and the populations that you know. Last question.
we,
Almost.
we are a very, very rich culture. I mean, we are a very ancient civilization, and we never tire of saying this. But sometimes we don't have a policy to back this up. You know,
Can you explain
we
that?
live in Sanskar Nagaris here, there. We all fit those things. We all want to celebrate those great artists. But when it comes to, I mean, take a look at our budgetary allocation. I'm told, 0.07% of the GDP is earmarked for all things cultural together.
That's
Now,
sad.
that
Yeah.
is a pitiable condition. You
Yeah.
look at the situation our museums are in. How much money is the government willing to spend on visual arts? And yet we are talking about soft power. Does soft power of a country only means popular films? No. So the investment and all that aspect, there is a lot of gaps. And when you go abroad, you realize that with or not only just government, even private participation, you can achieve great heights. And you wish that your country wakes up to this reality. I mean, look at the Chinese contemporary art scene, and look at the kind of money that came in from just the government side. It's huge. It's unbelievable.
I'll,
For us, even to imagine that is like we'll be living in a dream world.
what's
So
the
yes, you
solution?
do see these
What's
contrasts, but at the same time, you also see that despite those shortcomings, the Indian world of culture, and I'm talking generally
yeah,
now,
yeah,
not just visual culture,
yeah.
has managed to contribute quite substantially. And a hats off to people who are in the forefront of that, because they are nothing less than heroes. And people are there doing this year on year without really expecting anything in return, or very minimal in return. And I think that is absolutely an heroic effort. And one has to salute them
Yeah.
that they've managed to do it under not very conducive situations always.
Yeah.
And the country needs to respect them. And that's the least we could do as a country, to respect the leaders of the field of culture.
I'm not
No
asking
matter
you.
what, whether they're artists or poets or
You explain.
writers or musicians,
You
the what.
explain the least that the government could do? What is the climax? What is the best you think they can do? And how would it, like, I'm asking for a solution upfront. I'm sure you had the
See,
discussion.
the government is not going to, I don't think the government needs to get into this as a policy matter.
No,
Their job is to provide a sort of a level playing field, and also see to it that nobody is falling through the gaps. You know,
yeah,
so the basic thing, if that is provided, I think our artists are very, very inventive, and they are also have very minimal expectations. So it's not that you're expecting a great deal from the government, but if the minimum is provided, I think arts can take off. At a very least, if you just ensure that people do not really have to do things that they really don't want to do for their survival once they have made a mark, I think that's the basic minimum. I
yeah,
mean, there needs to be a little more money available in this, because culture needs money.
yeah,
And that money is not a money that comes from buying and selling. A lot of things do not sell, but which are great cultural things.
that's true. Yeah,
So that realization that, it's not necessarily the only the market which dictates. If you allow the only market to dictate what will be culture of a country,
yeah,
then you are destroying a lot of very fine nuanced things. But having said that, we are also a country where the non-organized sector, one of the largest contributors, are the craftsmen,
yeah,
and absolutely no specific safety nets for them.
yeah,
We don't, they don't count. And it's one a very large segment of the population. It's not negligible.
yes,
We are talking about lakhs of people who are involved in the craft industry.
yes,
No, but we don't take them into either labor or peasants.
yeah,
Where are they? They're nowhere. They're not just visible. They're invisible people. So if you just make them visible as part of your policy document, I think a lot can happen.
all right. Do
So
you,
I'm not just talking about art school trained artists. There
yeah,
are all kinds of practitioners.
do
And
you,
we are a country of living traditions. There are so many traditions. But there are so many people who are on the verge of falling through the gaps or
yeah,
have already fallen through the cracks.
yeah,
And there is absolutely no safety net for them.
yeah. Last question. Last question. Have you had over the years any absolute shockers as a teacher? And have you had, uh, where you felt like maybe a student wouldn't make it, but then surprised you completely? Or have you, and does it upset you that only 5% of the students eventually make it to the fine arts? Or is that your reality now? Is that something that everyone should hear and know?
I don't take credit for making any art stars, but there, if you look at it, there are people who have done it very well.
Yeah,
There are people who have not, but who have sustained. To me, somebody who has been feted as a great artist for 10 years, and somebody who's teaching in a village school, but sending 2, 3 very interesting students every year, but nobody knows him or her,
yeah,
are equally important. So
yeah, yeah,
that is not my criteria. That's the
yeah.
the art world's criteria. So like I said, I'm more geared towards the world of art, and
Any,
there you help in building an ecosystem, and in that ecosystem, the star is important, but he's not the only important character. There are people who are working backstage, who are not seen, who are not known, who are not famous, but doing their job quietly
yeah.
and actually helping in this environment to exist and survive. And I think their contribution is equally, if not more, important.
I want to ask you this beautiful subject that you mentioned about a world of art. Now, you're not a teacher. I'm asking you as an artist. Firstly, I want to ask you, how do you juggle yourself? You're an artist. And I have a funny question. The question is, it's like you're an artist and a teacher, and you've been surrounded by so many students. Why are your paintings still about loneliness?
That loneliness you can feel if you are in the Kumbh Mela also. It is not
It's-
something to do with,
yeah.
you can be very lonely in the Kumbh Mela. I'm
If
telling you. And this is pre-pandemic. I'm not talking
yeah,
about the
yeah.
pandemic here.
How do you juggle between being a practicing professional artist and being a teacher? And do you somewhere, like when you see a student who's painting like you, maybe a student is a student, they might try to please you, they might try to do copy your work or something. Do you stop them there? Because there's, I mean, I'm putting it out there. It's like there are professors I know of also who their ego gets really on when the student copies their work, and they're like, he's like learned from me, and they've started their own lineage. Does that excite you? How do you arrest that if you had to? Should you? And why? Also, the name of the show is why is it important? Why is originality important? Can you please answer that larger question?
Well, again, it's again a question that needs unpacking, because there are
Take,
many little
take
questions in there. That is difficult. You're often chasing two rabbits, and one rabbit disappears very fast. And that has been a struggle. And increasingly more so, because teaching is becoming a very demanding profession, not because of just the activity of teaching, that is you and your students, but there is all kinds of administrative demands
yeah,
and
yeah.
technical things that you
No,
get
no, I'm
bogged
not.
down with as you move up in seniority,
Yeah,
which I do not really enjoy, but it's something
sure.
that it comes your way and you have to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah,
There's no denying it.
yeah.
But that apart, I usually work at night, and I have kept that time separate for myself. And perhaps that also makes me sort of withdraw from a lot of things. And that requires a very quiet time. So I don't find that in the daytime. I usually find it at night. So my practice has been almost exclusively um, like that of a night owl.
That's nice. And
All my
and
works
how
are mostly started, ended, worked on
in the night?
at night and late in the night when things quieten down. But yes, it is a difficult choice. Sometimes you share so much with your students that you come back and sit in your studio and I feel exhausted that I have given what I have to give. And that do happen. But then you look at teaching also as a creative profession. You are
Teach,
learning things every day.
Teaching as a creative profession sounds like you're playing, and someone might look at it be like saying, "Oh, but you're playing at the expense of children." When you say creative, when you're saying,
No, I don't play at the expense of
no,
children,
no, I
but
mean,
there is always an element of play in any creative endeavor.
yes,
But I think without play, there is no creativity.
no, the
Either way.
isn't the so many years of art education institutionalized and like in a way ironed out its uh, how to do it, like because you're teaching a subject which is ever changing, ever evolving. I mean, the state of the art, the front line might be constantly unraveling itself, but the teaching itself is something, is that also being creatively
Yes, because the teaching needs to take into account, like I said at the very beginning, that art teaching is very different from regular teaching, because
yeah,
here the individual is at the center of everything. And you have to be conscious of that from day one, no matter what the method of teaching is. And it is never just from a podium. You cannot do that. You will have to know that person and get close to him or her in some ways. It's not, I'm just knocking that you have to be everybody's buddy. No, that's not the point.
yeah,
Point is that you will have to understand the strengths and weaknesses. You will have to understand what this person really wants to do. Your job is not to channelize them into one channel.
hmm.
There are as many channels as there are people. There may be similarities between A and B, but they're never exactly the same. So that element of subjectivity is always there. And your job is to make sure that you're not killing it. You're actually nurturing it
Yeah,
in a way
yeah,
where it flowers. So you said getting influenced by your teachers. We've all been influenced by our teachers. And if I see that happening in a student, I try to gently cajole them out of that, because I do not appreciate people who are
yeah,
instead, you are free to look and learn.
Yeah.
There is no secret. I don't hold anything secret, neither my technique nor my subject nor my thematics. Everybody knows everything about it. And
Yeah.
then it's not unusual to find somebody who's kind of latched onto something particular.
Yeah.
So your job is to kind of see if they realize that this is what they want. They don't need to go there. And I don't think I'm very happy making a bunch of disciples. I am nobody's guru. I don't want to be anybody's
Yeah.
guru.
Yeah. No. No. But
I am perfectly fine if you treat me as somebody who is slightly elder to you and has a little more experience and who can show you the way a little way. It's not that I can take you all the way,
no. No. That's you. That's
but
you.
I
That's
can
because
I can
you're.
give you the push. I can
I'm talking.
help you in thinking out problems. I can help you in gaining a little confidence in yourself and also teach you to look at things. That's all. I don't think I can do any more than that.
Can you? Can you?
And I'm perfectly happy.
Can you? Can you just kind of like, in a way, have you yet, with 25 years of experience, have you broken down, or have you come to the moment of ultimate realization of how originality can be touched? Like, how do you guide a student down the road of originality to
I
let.
think everybody has originality. Every
No, no,
single
no, 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 no.
person.
I'm not. I understand that. I understand that. But somewhere, again, I'm not. See, everybody's a student at all ages. I'm not generalizing. I'm saying that when you're, firstly, you are overexposing the students to a world of art, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
I don't think overexposing, they are underexposed. I'm just correcting that lacuna, if at all.
No, no.
Yes.
But I mean, if anybody, whether they're in art school or not in art school, they are
Yeah.
trying to overexpose themselves to art, and once they overexpose themselves, they are being, what's the word? They are being affected by it. They'll be somewhere. It'll rub off some kind of genre, some kind of technique, something. Now, to take that and to retain your originality is the unlearning process of everything you've learned. Let's talk about unlearning. Have you guided somebody to, or origin?
No, it doesn't happen like that, Vaibhav. It is something that is a symbiotic relationship. It grows in stages. It's not that you suddenly exposed and the word overexposure does not apply. It is I would use the metaphor of love. There is nothing called too much love. You can have love too many people. It's
Yeah.
not that your love has to be just unidirectional. The more
Yes.
you love, the better you get.
Yes.
So exposure is something like that. But it's that seed of confidence that you should have in yourself. And
True.
I think my job is to also instill that sense of confidence and to be able to look at things critically. Just because it's written in a book or published in a magazine, it is not God has spoken.
That's true.
There are very well-known artists. I don't respond to them. I will take one name, Andy Warhol. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I do not respond to that gentleman's work, and he's
Yeah.
hailed as one of the sort of
Yeah.
icons of messiahs of pop art. I
Be-
don't care because it does not resonate with me. So there are people who would resonate with me, and there are people who do not resonate with me. It doesn't matter who says who's a big shot and who's not. Now
yes.
you have to have that confidence to believe what you believe,
Yeah.
and so it is not as if you just expose them and then they get confused and then they have their individuality to take care of. The individuality grows with their exposure.
Yeah.
It not, these are like, you have to look at them as something like a growing plant. It's not that you reach that stage overnight.
Yes.
So
Also,
you start small,
as
and you build upon that, and it's actually a synergy of many things that brings out the best in you.
yeah.
You cannot do that by saying, oh, I'm not going to look at anything, I'm going to preserve my individuality. You're being stupid, because you are anyway bombarded with images every single moment of your life
Yeah.
in this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's going to protect you if you cannot have that critical edge to see, okay, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, this is what the image means,
Yeah.
I'm going to look at this image critically. If you have those tools at your disposal, then you find your way. My job is to provide you with some of those tools. I'm not saying I can give you all the tools, but I can at least give you some tools to negotiate this world which is so full of visuals.
Yes. Can you? I have a request. You can say no to it. Can you look in to the camera and just say please like, comment, and subscribe to Art History Plus, and that's it. I'm just asking you. You can say no to it.
Okay, Artistry Plus is doing a great job, and it would be nice if you could like, share, and subscribe to it because it encourages the uh, our Vaibhav to continue with this job. I think he's doing a good job and producing content for the with Indian artists and people related to the arts for the world over as well as
Plus.
India. So if you can do it, it would be very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. That was more than I expected. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Good night.